You are the executive chairman of Guardian Metal Resources in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm really smart. I just read that off of his name tag. So, what is Guardian Metal Resources? What are you guys about?
Yeah, Guardian Metals. It's a great story, and I guess you would expect anybody representing their company to say that, but it's unique in the sense that we're actually a UK-listed company, so our home office is technically London, England. Yeah, we the way the company came about was there's a publicly traded company on the AIM exchange over there called Power Metal Resources, and Power Metals has a really interesting, unique business model in that they go around and they buy up assets, right, and then they essentially see what they can group together, what the similarities are, and then they spin it off. And so years ago, they grabbed a bunch of different assets, and our chief executive officer, Oliver Friesen, came in and he started putting packages together. He's an old geologist, and he said, I really like Nevada. And so we had some assets, the company had some assets in Nevada that he put together, and one started to come to the surface, and that was the Pilot Mountain project, which was a tungsten asset.
Okay.
And this is before tungsten ever became sort of in vogue, which
Isn't
it is.
Funny how those things happen.
Well, it is.
You don't even realize the value of some of the things that are in the ground.
Yeah, and it's cyclical. Right? I've been doing this for 20 years. I've worked on fertilizer projects. I've worked on industrial minerals projects. I've worked on precious metals projects and critical minerals projects. And if you were into rare earths 5 or 6 years ago, you're still kind of reaping the benefits of that. If you were into antimony a couple of years ago, that and now tungsten along with gallium and germanium are kind of it's the it thing.
For
and
sure.
and yes, we happen to be sitting on 2 projects that are old producing assets in Nevada. So Nevada used to be.
So your projects are actually producing now, or
they're not. That
Okay.
They were. So Pilot Mountain produced back for the war effort back in the 1940s, and then Tempaiute, which is a project we acquired the rights to in January, last produced in the late 1980s, and it was owned by Union Carbide.
Okay.
And it was a direct provider to the Department of Defense.
Wow.
And then at that point, China flooded the market, as they often do, to weaponize materials. Dropped the price of tungsten, and the mine essentially had to shut its doors.
So for the average person, talk to me a little bit, if you don't mind, about, because this is your industry, this is your expertise. When you talk about how China flooded the market, what does that do in our industry to those, like they were operating, now they're not, and you say China flooded the market back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. What happens when you say they flooded the market to the layperson? What does that mean? What are the consequences?
So they amped up production, and they sit on 80% of the world's deposits.
Okay.
Russia does the same thing. It is essentially like in the potash space, Russia and Belarus control all of the potash, or a lot of the potash. But what they do is a nation will amp up production, so they'll start to produce, near specific quantities that the mine can produce, and they start to flood the market. Well, traditionally then what happens is the prices start to fall.
Right.
And the cost of production in the West versus the East is always, it becomes a situation where it's not sustainable. And companies might be able to sustain it for a month or a quarter or a couple of quarters, but on an annual basis, it's a free market economy. So you're going to go where the commodity, if the quality is equal, you're going to go to the most cost-effective price point.
So when we talk about that, you say if the quality is equal. I remember one of my first businesses that I started, I learned very early on, and it cost me a lot of money, what the lowest qualified bid was. And you talk about it being equal. Is there more to the mineral or the product or even the organization that makes it equal or that gives it that quality? Do you understand where I'm going with the question?
Yeah, I do. And look, when you talk mining, you talk upstream, right? So mining is as far upstream as you can get, and then as you float downstream, you get through the processing, and then more importantly, the refinement of an end product. So I'll use tungsten as an example. We don't have any current domestic tungsten production in the United States.
Zero.
Zero. None.
Wow.
84% of it is imported from China. The rest is imported from Russia. Wow. There's some stuff coming out of Korea. There's some stuff coming out of Bolivia, and a few.
We use tungsten quite a bit, don't we?
It's in more things than you, especially military applications. So a lot of armor-piercing munitions, that's a tungsten tip. If you take the shell of a battleship or a tank, that has tungsten armor plating as part of it. So yeah, it's used pretty dramatically in our defense.
Wow.
It's also used in a lot of exploration. So cutting tools for oil and gas drilling, that's all tungsten carbide. And so we're faced with a situation where we have no domestic production whatsoever, haven't for quite some time. But now in the United States, we're starting to understand the value of having our own supply chains. And tungsten's really interesting in that there's plenty of processing here, right? So there's processing in your home state of Pennsylvania. We have a commercial relationship with a group that'll actually take our concentrate and create these advanced derivative products.
Wow.
But we have no upstream here in the United States, which is pretty interesting. But it also means that a solution is right around the corner for tungsten where it isn't around the corner for some of the other materials that are out there.
So talk to me about that solution. What does that look like, and what is Guardian bringing in that solution?
So we've got, as I mentioned, we've got two projects, both in the Walker Lane Belt in the state of Nevada, very mining friendly jurisdiction. And what we will do is we'll essentially take raw ore, and you put it through a ball crusher, so it gets crushed down, and then you essentially put it through a flotation loop. And that flotation loop is set up so that the concentrate, so the tungsten concentrate, which is WO3, will come to the surface, and you essentially scrape that off. And then you'll send that to a Buffalo Tungsten out of Buffalo, New York, a GTP out of Towanda, Pennsylvania, who we have a commercial relationship with, and they will process it down to ammonium paratungstate. They will process it into...
Why am I not surprised you said Towanda? Because I know where that is, and it's a different place.
Yeah, never been, but I'm sure I'll visit at some point. And then they will ultimately process it into the product that is bought.
Okay.
Right? And so the military, whether it's an oil and gas exploration company, they will end up processing it into the end product that the consumer will buy.
That sounds like a lot of jobs and a lot of economic impact across our country.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about our story is fusing sort of a mineral that is used not only in defense, but actually it does have a bit of a green angle to it. So the cutting tools for solar panels, the cutting tools for wind turbines, that's all has a tungsten derivative or an input into it. So here we are bridging critical minerals in Nevada with, a traditional coal, petrochemical state like Pennsylvania, bringing a lot of jobs, a lot of economic stimulus to both of the areas. Mining underpins so many things that people just take for granted. And we are now, as a country, just starting to scratch the surface of people, understanding that, hey, the products that go into your solar panels or your electric vehicles, that came out of the ground somewhere.
I do feel like we've been doing it backwards. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's like, so being an electrician, when I got my start, tungsten is involved a lot in electrical connections and things like that.
It's the filament in light bulbs.
Exactly. And it's like, it's a huge part of all of the things that we need for AI, for all of these things, and we don't realize how interconnected it is. And the reality is, if we want to be being more energy efficient, if we want to be doing these things, I've often not understood, like, I don't mind electric cars, but, if we're not doing the things for the grid to be able to handle them,
there's no point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, these are some of the things that I think really affect that. And we need to be paying more attention to, for sure.
Agreed. And on the kind of the coolness spectrum, let me go a little step further.
Absolutely.
So we commissioned a study. It was either late last year or early this year with the University of Oxford out of England, and they studied the input of tungsten in nuclear fusion. Right. So there's five fusion reactors around the world. And we often say internally that those who solve the fusion problem probably win the energy race.
Yeah.
But there are significant amounts of tungsten that go into the lining of each reactor. and that's just to construct the reactor, and then it has to be replaced over time. So one of the gating items on fusion is actually tungsten, and the fact of the matter is there's just not enough right now being produced at a quantity and a grade that can be used on a mass scale. So,
and we could be doing that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We could be doing it.
We could be doing that. Well, and that's fascinating to me because I'm involved with some different data centers projects are a big deal right now. And I literally was just talking with a company the other day, a manufacturing organization that's a part of building, it's going to sound crazy, but nuclear power for data centers.
Yeah.
And you're talking about that technology with what you're looking at with tungsten. It's like people don't realize, like, we're literally talking about miniature nuclear power plants for a facility, having its own dedicated power. And to what you said, it is solving that energy problem.
Well, there's a reason why Meta and Google or Alphabet are investing in nuclear power and power, generally speaking, because we just don't have it right now to power the data centers that we're going to be building or that we're in the process of building today.
Well, it takes
massive,
the ones that they're built. It's insane.
Yeah, it takes massive amounts of energy.
And people don't realize how essential that is, and what happens if we run out of it here, then we don't have it here.
Yeah.
So you can build a data center, you can have AI, you can have Meta, you can have all these things that make life easier and better and more efficient, but you can't have it without tungsten.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And tungsten is not the only item that's out there that we need for us to do X. Yeah. There is a long list of them.
And I'm assuming it's not the only item that you guys are going after either.
Well, it is primarily what Yeah, we do have some gallium in our deposit. We also have some zinc and some silver, which through our flotation system we'll be able to use as part of our revenue model. But yeah, we're pretty focused on being the one trick pony. But most importantly, we say that the reshoring of American tungsten goes through Guardian Metals.
Yeah.
And so we are laser focused on getting our two projects back into production, helping to restore some glory.
Well, you really have a unique situation where I've talked with a lot of different groups that are trying to get things off the ground, out of the ground, like you guys are. But your situation is very unique that you literally already have all these places here in the United States that you could automatically be sending your product to.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Yeah. In fact, we had a commercial team, including our chief executive, that was at the ITIA conference in Helsinki about 3 weeks ago, which is the annual tungsten conference.
Wow.
And they tell me that the line is out the door with people saying, hey, can we talk about offtake? How do we line up supply? You guys have openly stated that you can be in production by the end of the current administration. We can't get our hands on scrap. We can't get our hands on any new material. Of course, China completely stopped any exports to the United States on the 4th of February. So it's an industry that is going to start to struggle. And then you mix in the U.S. government. Their strategic stockpile has been depleted, so they've got an open call out now for product as well. So you got to get the timing right, and the timing's really good for Guardian Metals right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sitting down and having this conversation with us, JT.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Helping people be aware of what's going on so that we can make a difference in our world today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, pleasure is all mine.
Thanks for stepping up.
Thanks again. You bet.